All right, good afternoon, everybody. It is Jay again, and planting season has begun. Man, everything is starting to wake up and look beautiful for the year. We're getting all of our blooms and blossoms and fruit and leaves, and this is a very exciting time of the year because, like I just said, planting season has begun. So we've got about, I don't know, 8 more months of planting that we will be doing. And starting this weekend, I'm going to be dropping a bunch of plants in the ground, not only for myself, but I am going to start planting a lot of these trees for customers starting this weekend. All right. So, what is the subject matter of today? Well, there are several questions that I get asked every single year. And so I figured I might as well, instead of answering everybody a whole bunch of different times. Oh, wow, look at these. Look at these mulberries. Oh my gosh, it's going to be a ridiculous year on fruit. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the subject matter of today is going to be, I want to grow a red apple, or I want to grow a Honeycrisp apple in Arizona. Okay, so that question I get asked every single year and multiple times per year. And like I said, I'm going to just go ahead and do a video real quick today to address that situation, and know that it not only pertains to apple trees, but this information also pertains to pear trees, plum trees, apricots, peaches, and nectarines. All of those trees in particular, this information is going to help you out. And once I do the video, and you guys are going to get that oh yeah moment after watching this video, because it's a very, very simple explanation or answer to the question, and it will also solve a lot of your problems in wanting some of the higher chill fruit trees. Okay, so a lot of the higher chill fruit trees tend to be a little bit darker fruit wise. Okay, so I've got some examples right here of some different apples. Okay, the super red one here, the really dark red one, this one happens to be a Cosmic Crisp apple. The yellow one here, this one happens to be an Envy apple. And then this kind of multicolored light apple with the red blush or the red streaks, this is a Tropic apple. But what these are indicative of, since I couldn't find anything else this time of the year, is this would be indicative of, like, say, a Honeycrisp apple. This would be indicative of one of our apples that we grow here, one of the yellow apples, called the Einsheimer. So this would be comparable to the Einsheimer apple. And then we've got the Tropic apple in the back here, and you can see that it is mostly yellow, but it does have a little bit of streaking or a little bit of pink blushing to it. And this apple would be indicative of, like, say, a Golden Dorset apple, where it's got some yellow, but it's got a little bit of pink blush there, especially where the sunlight hits it. So key, guys, remember that. So where the sunlight strikes the apple, it's going to have a little bit of a pink blush or a little bit of a red blush right there where the sun is striking it. Okay, so what is the situation with desert apples, or being able to grow some of these darker apples or these darker fruited fruit trees in the desert here in the valley, or really any desert? Because I think this information pretty much pertains to any kind of desert growing where there's a harsh environment. Okay, and what this has to do with is, this has to do not necessarily with heat, but this has to do with sun exposure. Okay, so here in Arizona, we've got very, very high UV. The ultraviolet light here in Arizona is so bright that what it ends up doing is it ends up bleaching a lot of the the leaves, or let's say you hung your clothes up during the day, it's going to actually bleach them completely white. So you've got that sun exposure that's hitting the different fruits, okay? So you're going to say to yourself, well, okay, so I want to grow this darker colored apple here in the desert. I don't really want to grow the yellow apples or the lighter color apples. I really kind of prefer growing these darker ones. Well, I'm just going to tell you it's going to be a challenge, and the reason is because of that high sun exposure that we have. So let me explain. Okay, so a lot of these darker colored fruits, darker colored apples, pears, plums, a lot of the darker colored ones, right? The reds and the purples. A lot of those come from northern areas where it's not only a lot cooler, but the sunlight, the sun exposure that's actually hitting that fruit to ripen the fruit on the tree is not so intense in those areas where it's a lot cooler, right? So the apple needs to be a darker color in order to grab all that extra sunlight and sun exposure in order to ripen, because you got to remember they need light to ripen and they need a little bit of warmth to ripen. Okay, so if you're somewhere where it's a lot colder, well, or cooler, well, then the sun's not so bright and not so intense on you, okay? So these apples need to be a lot darker in order to capture a lot more of that little sunlight that they're getting, and the little bit of that heat that they're getting, they're not getting much, okay? In Arizona, it's the opposite of that. Our UV is so high and the sunlight is so rough that it actually ends up cooking your apples, right? Like if you put them in an X-ray machine, right? They would get a burn, a radiation burn, okay? And so that's what happens to these darker fruits when you're in a place like Arizona. Whereas if you've got the lighter fruits here, right, they're not going to sunburn, but they're still going to ripen perfectly because you've got light that is hitting these lighter fruits, right? But you've also got the warm air that is also warming them up, allowing them to ripen, okay? So that's why things in Arizona or the desert, if you look out in the desert, especially when things are blooming, what you're going to notice is everything that blooms here in the desert naturally, for the most part, is going to be white flowers, and it's going to be yellow flowers. Okay, that's what you're going to see in the desert. Now, you're going to say, yeah, a few things here bloom purple and red, okay? But for the most part, those are going to be things like night blooming cactus, okay? So they're going to bloom at night when the sun is not so harsh on them, because it requires a lot more energy to put these darker pigments into these fruits, okay? So that is why the lighter fruits do so well in Arizona or areas where it's hot, and that's why the darker fruits do so well in areas where it's a little bit cooler, because they need that extra sunlight warming that darker fruit, because you know darker fruits are going to warm quicker, right, out in the sun than a lighter fruit is, okay? Now, this pertains to all of these type of fruit trees. Okay, so here we've got some pears. Same situation, okay? This is a really dark pear. This is a red D'Anjou pear, okay? And of course, this is the one that everyone wants to grow in Arizona, right? Because remember, grass is always greener, right? People down here, they want to grow these darker fruits. People in colder regions, they want to grow things like citrus, right? That have lighter color fruits. So you're not going to grow this one in Arizona or in Phoenix, and you're not going to grow it easily, okay? I'm not saying it can't be done if you live in an area, of course, in Arizona where it's a lot cooler, Show Low, Flagstaff, those type areas. Well, of course, you'll be able to get something like this to work in those areas. But the one we're going to get to work here in the valley are going to be the lighter colors. So here is an example of one here. This is a Southern King pear. And this is a southern variety. This is one that we grow here in Arizona. And you can see that, yeah, it is going to be just slightly smaller, but it's going to, and it might not look the best. right? Because, well, this one's a homegrown one, and it's going to get a little bit beat up by the wind as it's kind of bashing into the branches here. So you may have some little small abrasions here, but I would much rather have this fruit than one that is store-bought, right? Yeah, it is a little bit bigger and a little bit smoother. You know, well, there are some imperfections here too. So the same thing applies to these pear trees, right? The ones that are going to work the best are going to be the lighter colored pears, like the Southern King, like the one I just showed you, or the Kiefer pear, which is this one here. This is also a lighter colored pear, okay? It's going to be the exact same thing when you get to plums. So everyone wants to grow the dark plums, dark purples and reds. And yeah, I get it, guys. I understand that you want to grow those, but what's the best one that grows here? Well, the best one that grows here is going to be the Santa Rosa plum. And the Santa Rosa plum happens to be what? It happens to be a yellow fleshed plum, okay? So that's why they do so good. So grow regionally, right? So yeah, we can't grow these here, but we can grow these here real well. Whereas another part of the country, they're not going to be able to grow these real well. So you can grow these. So pick your poison, right? And yeah, you might not be able to do some of the darker fruits, but you can do things like mangoes. You know, we're warmer here, so we can do more of those tropical type plants, right? So you get the ones, the low chill or the southern varieties if you live in, you know, Phoenix, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, any of those type places where it's a lot warmer. Than if you'll get the lower chill, early ripening varieties, right? Like peaches. Stay away from like these August Pride peaches and all these later ripening peaches because they're not going to be any good. Like having a peach sit that long on the tree is not going to be good for that. So what you want to do is get all your peaches early, get them all before June 1st comes on, and then you can move on to other things like mangoes and guavas that are going to be all of your summer fruits. You don't have to worry about getting, well, pears are going to ripen in the fall anyway, but you don't have to try to get fruit every month off of every one of these trees, meaning get some pears in May and then a different kind of pear in June and a different kind of pear in July. Guys, you're going to be so sick of whatever that one fruit is by the time you're done eating it that you're going to want to move on to the next one anyway. Okay. So it's not a matter of can I do it? It's a matter of, do you want to do it? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And you'll understand that once you get more into growing a lot of these plants, that you'll eat the thing as it's ready. And then you may not want that thing for a whole nother year again because you've stuffed yourself silly from whatever that one fruit plant is, right? Now, a very, very, very important part of this video is I'm going to get this question too. Okay, so that makes sense as far as fruit goes, sort of, but that doesn't make sense as far as people go, right? Because you've got areas that are warm, hot, right? So you've got like Africa, right? And you've got people that live there that are dark, right? And you've got places like Greenland, Iceland, and you've got people up there that are very, very light, right? Okay. And you might say, well, that's the opposite then of what's happening, right? Because you just said the opposite of that. You'd want these really light fruits where it's hot, but then with people, you want very dark people where it's hot, right? Yes, because people don't ripen, okay? Now, maybe some of us do after we've worked really hard on the farm that day or whatnot. Maybe we get a little ripe, okay, smelling, but people don't ripen. So it's the opposite of what's going on when it comes to human beings, right? You've got dark skin in areas where it's hot like that because you're protecting yourself. You're protecting your skin. You're not trying to protect the skin on these necessarily. You're trying to ripen up the fruit. So that's why when it comes to fruit, it's going to be the opposite of people. Okay. All right, guys, that is the end of today's video. I hope you guys get out there and start planning and planting your orchard, because, man, this year in particular is going to be an extremely fruitful year. Everything's warmed up already, and we are sort of off to the races on these things already. So get out there, get things planted. Remember, guys, I don't care where you buy things or shop or procure trees from, just as long as you're adding things to your orchard and constantly adding things to your orchard, because it seems like there are new varieties of things that come out almost every single year. So just when you think you got it all done, you have not. All right, guys, that is it for today's video. If you liked the video, please hit that thumbs up button, and please subscribe for more of this type of content. Guys, it's very easy to learn plants if you'll just observe what's going on with them. All right, guys, that is it. Like and subscribe, and I will be doing a lot more videos as spring is warming everything up, and as we're getting more and more fruit on the trees, I will be doing a lot more of these type of videos. All right, guys, that is it. Thank you for watching.